Do you want to be on my podcast? I love those dogs.
He's been a little too friendly.
If you want, we can hold them
No,
down.
that's okay. I feel like we should give them like 2 minutes just to get acquainted. That's what the nice thing about editing is you can just cut all this out.
I can hold one of mine too, and that will.
They're all good. I say we just let them once they get settled. Way to go, Shaq. You are not a Catholic priest.
I'm not a Catholic priest.
We're mixing it up today.
Yeah.
Rupert, welcome. You want to come with us? Oh yeah. Wow, he's pretty athletic.
Yourself right at home.
Leah.
Wait, what camera should I look at? Or just you?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Just one-on-one. Xander's not here. The cameras aren't here. These bulldogs aren't heavy breathing.
Yep.
Leah McCloud, welcome to Holy Toledo.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I say we just go through the commotion.
Yeah, let's do it.
Embrace it.
It's a part of it's authentic.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Leah McCloud, welcome to the show. It is so good to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So, I admire you for a lot of reasons.
Okay.
One, you quit your job.
Yes.
Chasing your dream. So, obviously, I'm Catholic. This is a YouTube show kind of talking about faith.
Yeah.
And you're very spiritual.
Yeah.
Which is something that I want to improve on.
Okay.
So I'd love to kind of talk about your background. I've got a few questions, and then talk about what you do now, human design.
Yeah.
And then talk a little bit about Jesus.
Yeah.
Just kind of go from there.
Okay.
So, please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Leah, born and raised near the Toledo area, so Holy Toledo. Yeah, I used to work a corporate job. I was working at, I can say I worked at Owens Corning in Toledo, and I did that for about 4.5 years, and then left in 2022 to start my own business, which I had started prior to leaving, but to go all in on it. And I teach something called human design, which is like it's called a self-awareness modality or system or tool that helps you learn about how energy works within your body. So it's based on your birth information. So like astrology is a piece of it. And yeah, I've been doing that since 2022 full time, and it's been a great journey.
And how did you stumble upon that?
Yeah. So back in 2017 or so, I was listening to a podcast and I had heard someone talk about human design. And I had always been really interested in, I've always been really interested in understanding myself. And so I love, personality tests, like a Myers-Briggs, an Enneagram, anything like that. I've always loved, astrology and kind of like the esoteric things. I grew up Catholic, and I studied religion in college. And so I've always just really loved like that kind of realm of things. Like I loved learning about, I guess, like sort of like the unseen. But really at that time I was like, oh, what's this like tool that I've never, heard about before? Like I've done all these other tests and I feel like I know so much about myself through these things. Like this is, another part. And I think another part of me loves like self-help modalities. Like one thing I have noticed about you being in your home is like you're into health. You've got an air doctor, and I saw like the
mainly
little,
for the stench of these boys, but
yeah, all of the things. And so I've just always kind of liked, learning about myself, whether that's through therapy or, something, journaling challenges, that kind of thing. So I ended up, when I stumbled upon this human design, I was like, this is really cool. Like, this is amazing. And at the time I looked it up and there wasn't a lot of information actually that existed about it. And so I never really like picked it up again until 2020. We obviously all know what happened then. And I was on Instagram one evening, and this girl I'd followed, she had posted about this human design reading that she had and like how life-changing it was. And so I was like, this is amazing. I want to learn more about this. I remember hearing about it a few years ago. And so I ended up, booking a session, in between the time that, I booked the session and had it was probably a couple weeks. And I was like, I'm going to learn this. Like I started kind of like looking it up, and there was a lot more information that had, come about at that point. So then I, bought, it's called like the Definitive Book of Human Design. And I was like, I'm going to read this. And I was like, I just fell in love. And so it became my little hobby during COVID when I was working from home. And my fiance, who's here behind the scenes.
Shout out to Xander.
Yeah.
A proud Finley alum.
He was a nurse. And he is a nurse, and so. But at that time, it was like when COVID, no one really knew what it was, and so we actually weren't seeing each other, like just because of safety reasons. And so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I got into like learning about it. But it's a really complicated system. So then shortly after that, I was like, I need to enroll in a training. So then I invested in a training, and then for me, I always saw it as something I would do on the side with my corporate career because, I had this kind of like, nice corporate job. My family was like, they would tell you it was like the dream job and all these things. And for me, I felt, pretty unfulfilled doing that. And then, yeah, so I was like, I'm going to do this on the side. It's going to kind of nourish that side of me that loves to like help people. And, I feel like I've always been the advice friend. So I'm like, it's going to be this just thing, outlet for me to explore, working with people and, just helping them truly. And, but then it kind of slowly, surely became the thing that like I just wanted to spend all my time doing. So, and then, lots of things in between there. But then I ended up, deciding to leave my corporate job and then just doing this full time.
And here we are now.
And here I am, yeah.
How did your loved ones take that? Like, hey, I'm going to quit my job and do this full time.
Not well, at all. Xander took it well. Xander was the one that was like, quit your job, because we had moved in that time period. So then he started travel nursing. We moved from Toledo to Southern California, and when we were in California, the sorry, I just had a. So when we were in California, we ended up. So I was working Eastern hours, my corporate job remote. So I'd work. I could wake up at 4 or 5, work until 2, and then we would like, get done, go to the gym, and then I would basically do human design until like midnight, and that was kind of my thing. And
Meaning like learn about it and
yeah, learn about it. I was doing readings for people, so I was just so busy with it. But it's all I wanted to do. Like there was a point then I started just slacking in my corporate job because I was like actually just doing human design stuff, like studying or reading charts or analyzing people's charts. So then yeah, I just, that's all I talked about. And so Xander's like, you should quit your corporate job. But I'm like, how am I going to support my life? I was making this like 6-figure salary, like, in California now. But I ended up, yeah, kind of taking that leap. My family, my dad was like not into it at all. But my dad also comes from like, he saw my corporate career as like a dream. Like he never worked a job that you could, work from home, like have as much vacation as you wanted, like, kind of like the newer age way that corporate America is. Like he just didn't understand that because he always worked in a factory where it's like you have to clock in at exactly the time that you have to be there. So he saw my job as like this dream, and I was, achieved that at a young age. And I was like, yeah, no, I just like, I'm not fulfilled though.
yeah.
And my mom she's just so supportive. Like she was just like, I'm like, of course, concerned as any parent would be, but she was just like, she believed in me. And she's always kind of been the person that like sees those kind of gifts in me before I do. So she was like more supportive. But I mean, I think more than anything, lots of questions from just like friends and people not so much close to me, and just like confusion and like, what is she doing? Like I remember hearing like trickles of things from my extended family, and that was always uncomfortable because and obviously it's not like I was leaving to do something traditional either, like, oh, I'm going to start a business, like, a car wash or like, I don't know, like something that like you would, kind of know something about. No one knows what human design is. It's like in this kind of spiritual, like kind of realm. And so people were kind of just confused of like, okay, what is she doing?
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Well, good for you for being brave enough, because yeah, it's one thing to quit a cush job for like a passion like teaching or something, but human design, obviously, like I think the stereotype that you would say is, I've seen some things like the woo woo.
Super woo woo, yeah.
So defending yourself against family. So good for you.
Yeah.
We have crazy similar. My dad was a golf pro. Like you have to show up for that job. He was like, he just didn't understand it. Like supportive, but just like, I don't get it.
Yeah. How are you gonna make money?
Yeah.
Like, how are you gonna pay your bills?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. If I don't think the camera can see it, but we've got Gus, Rupert, Shaq, and Diesel bonding. She's got 2 French bulldogs. Oh my gosh, he's a leaper. This is perfect.
This is all day them, and they just
mine never.
They just ate and went to the bathroom, and so like those 2 things, and like those 2 steps, the third step is play, and then they'll sleep.
Well, hopefully Shaq and Diesel will learn that they're not big players. Okay, so before I ask you some questions, just like a little bit more on human design.
Yeah.
So if I was someone that was interested in it, like what what do people come to you for, I guess, and what do you provide them?
Yeah. So human design is a modality that helps you understand
What does that term
how,
mean, modality?
like, system or
Okay,
tool.
okay,
Yeah. Yeah. So just some type of like, yeah, system,
okay.
really. And uh, it helps you understand how energy works in your body. So basically everyone has what's called like a unique body graph or blueprint, really. And so it looks at your energy centers within your body, and it's based on the time you're born. So when someone comes to me in a session, like, I look up their birth information, and so I need to know, the day they're born, what time they're born, and where. And really, what's that? It's calculating like where all the planets and things were. So there's a level of belief of like the galaxy or the planets or the cosmos essentially impacts us. And so essentially, based on all of those placements, everyone has this unique, body graph or blueprint or human design chart. And so for me, I'm reading these charts, and people come to me typically for, I would say, like, life transitions are a big thing. So particularly like, I want to quit my job, or, I want to get a divorce, or I want to move cities, or I'm lost. I don't know who I am. So a lot of people are coming to me who feel like disconnected from themselves, and they're like trying to figure out like where to go next. And so one of the like really cool things about human design is that everyone has like a unique decision making tool within themselves. And so we all have an energy type. There's 5 different ones. And so there's generators, manifesting generators, manifestors, projectors, and reflectors. Those are the 5 different types. And so each one kind of tells you, how your energy is working within your body.
Mm.
And so, people usually report when they get into human design or they do a session with me, they just feel really seen. And that was like the experience I had when I started diving into it. Was like, I feel like this is bringing language to my soul that I'd always been searching for. Like, there's these parts of my personality that, like, anyone could tell you at a young age, or like things about me that were a part of who I am, that like all of a sudden I had, this kind of tool to lean on to be like, yeah, this is like actually like I feel empowered. Like, I can actually confidently say these are not just things that like, I just thought about myself. They're actually like I'm designed that way. And so a lot of people come to me just wondering, like, how their energy works. Because once you know your energy type, every type has a strategy, which basically says, like, this is how you reduce resistance in your life, and this is how you create more flow
Mm.
and get into a flow state, and you can start to feel less friction. And then from there, like, everyone has something called an authority, which your authority is just a fancy word for your intuition. And there's 7 different ones. So some people are designed to be emotional, where they need to work with their emotions and, kind of ride a wave to find clarity. Then there are people who they have really strong gut feelings. It's actually called sacral authority. And for them, when they're making decisions, they can kind of lean into what their body's saying in the moment. They can kind of trust that instant kind of whatever's showing up. Then there's some people who have what's called splenic or instinctual authority, which is all about, your instincts, and almost there's like a survival mechanism to making decisions for them. Some people are designed with really strong willpower. Some people, their decision making tool is all about voicing like how they feel, and like kind of being a sounding board with someone and like seeing what's coming up in their voice. Some people it's all about environments, and some people it's actually like waiting 30 days and tuning into like people, spaces, and more. So human design, those are just, kind of the basis of what a lot of people use the tool for. But not only that, like, every single person has 26 different gifts within their chart, and there's 64 overall. And so I can look at someone's chart and see, like, you're actually like designed to be like, you have these different gifts. So for example, one of the things that rang really true for me with human design was I was born under what's called gate 1, and gate 1 is the gift of creativity. And like, that's been a constant in my whole life. I think Xander, my fiance, or my family could tell you, like, as a kid, like, I used to say I wanted to be an artist. Like, I was always like highly creative. And so learning that, I'm like, this is insane. Like, that is like my most potent gift within my chart. Some people, they're like great listeners. Some people, it's about being really nurturing. Some people, community is a huge piece. And again, like, there's so many more pieces to it, where like you can look at how food is digested within your system, how you
Oh,
pick up
wow.
information, what environments you thrive in. how your mind is motivated, where you're prone to conditioning, where like you can get pulled off track and you can, like essentially we can see within someone's chart, like where you have a lot of lessons to learn, like where you're feeling energy from other people so you can become really wise in these spaces, but you also have the ability to be kind of pulled off from like who you
So it's not just, hey, this is what's great about you. It's like, hey, this could be your blind spots. Your...
totally, yeah, like lots of like, I always call it like the wisdom and the shadows, or the high expression and the low expression. And so yeah, when people come to me, I look up their chart and then I just kind of flow through depending on they fill out a form, so they have to, obviously drop in their birth info, but I ask them like, are you moving through anything right now? Is there anything you specifically want to talk about? Some people are just curious about human design and want to do sessions with me because they're just like, how am I designed? Like, who am I? And what is this thing? I'm just curious. And then some people are like, I've heard about it and I want to like dive deeper into it and I need help with this situation.
Yeah.
So,
do you ever have someone that says like, Leah, this says that I'm a whatever, and they're like, that does not hit home, or do you find it very consistent? Like,
yeah, all the time. Yeah,
okay.
there's and so specifically, I will say this. I've never had someone say I don't resonate with their chart. They always pretty much do. But what happens is like a lot of times, like one of the most common energy types is what's called a generator. That's what I am. And I'd be curious to see what you are
Yeah.
too. We'll have to maybe look it up if you know your birth
I
time.
think I'm a reflector.
Oh, you are?
I'm guessing. I don't know.
Oh, they're only 1% of the population. So I was like, wait, that would be really cool.
Yeah,
There's
maybe.
a few podcast hosts that are reflectors, which is really neat. So maybe we'll have to look it up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But so for, generators, one of the like common qualities of them is that they're built in with like this consistent energy or fuel to work. And so they're really good at output. They can build things. They're called the builders. And so when I work with people and I tell them about being a generator, one of the number one things I hear is like, I don't have a lot of energy. Like I feel really drained. I don't feel this like exuberant, satisfying, joyful life force that is described as generators. And that's
So funny.
and that's really common because a lot of us are living out of alignment. Like a lot of us aren't actually like working with our energy because we live in a society that tells us like, how to find happiness in a lot of different ways. And so I think especially with social media, we're told like this is the way that you need to live your life, or, this is like what you should be doing or how you should be dressing or where you should be going. And I think there's a lot of
Just make sure that's... Okay, sorry.
we love a dog inclusive environment. Every time we go places where like people don't have dogs, I'm like, don't go near anything.
Yeah.
No, so a lot of times like in that scenario, people say I don't have like the energy like that. And so I'll say to them, well, like how's your job? Like what's your day-to-day like? And a lot of times people are doing things because they feel like they have to rather than like they actually like enjoy that thing. So I think career is a big piece of it where I work with people a lot. And I think we always attract people who have similar stories. Like obviously that's probably how like we're
Right,
sitting next to
right,
each other right now, where I think a lot of like what I embody is, I've left a corporate job. And so a lot of people I think come to me for that because it's like something about my vibe gives that off, or people hear that about my story. And so, for example, like a lot of people will tell me like, I hate going to work every day. I'm so drained. I'm tired. Like I have no energy like I'm supposed to. And so like I work with people on kind of like removing that in their life and figuring out like, okay, well, how can you, bake in things you do love? Like as a generator, one of your greatest gifts is doing things that you enjoy, and that actually uplifts energy. Like everyone has an aura like within their energy, and the aura of a generator is like really warm and it wraps around people. And so specifically if they're majority of the population, around 70%, and they're doing things they hate, well, that's going to bring down the energy of everyone they're around. So like my number one thing is, okay, if you hate your job, how can you within your job have a conversation with your manager to do things that you love more? Or perhaps like outside of your job, can you fill your cup like with an extracurricular or a hobby or something that like allows you to like feel more joyful, because that actually, brings up the energy of everything around you and helps you attract more opportunities that are in alignment for you. So yeah, people all the time are like, I don't like relate to that. And I would say that's usually the instance right there. And the other thing is, what usually happens, and like I specifically am remembering a reading I did in the beginning when I first started, like someone, I was working with was, managing or dealing with like a lot of like depression and like I just having a lot of mental health, stuff going on, really hard things in his life. And I remember him saying to me, I know that person you're describing. Like I know who that person is. I'm not that. And like I don't know what to do about that. Like I don't feel this way. Like I hear you, but like I'm not resonating, not because I don't like know that, but like I'm just not that person anymore. And I don't know how to like find that version of me again. So I get that a lot too, where it's like I resonate, but I like can't. And that was the experience I had. Like it was as much as I saw human design and I felt really seen, I also felt super confronted because I was like, this is, yeah, like I am this version. I know this version of me, but like right now, not so much. I feel like all these things in my life are okay, but it's like I know I was meant for more. So yeah.
That's cool. So you help people live their best life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
I love that's like a phrase I use a lot for
Very
sure.
cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I think today that's needed. I feel like it's rare to see someone really pushing and
Yeah.
like living their best life.
Yeah.
Uh, awesome. So I'm gonna assume you kind of got into this because you're very spiritual and you feel things.
Yeah.
So a twofold question is my one is like, why aren't you an atheist? Is because, well, let me back up a little bit. So
Okay.
you were raised Catholic.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I say I was raised Catholic, my family wasn't like the most, specific Catholic mold by any degree, but both my parents like, kind of grew up. My mom's is actually Lutheran and then my dad is Catholic.
Okay.
But, my dad grew up in a very like traditional family. You got to do things by the book. My mom with my oldest sister, she got pregnant actually outside of marriage with my dad.
Okay.
And so they like the story goes, and I'll tell it because they won't care. They won't even probably listen to this. But, like they went on a ski trip and then like broke up after the ski trip. And then my mom called my dad like a few weeks later and is like, I'm pregnant.
Mm.
And so very quickly, like by, I think the spring, they were married in the
Oh,
courthouse.
cool.
Like my grandpa was like, you have to get married if you're, gonna bring, kids into this world. So very traditional in that sense.
And they're still together?
No,
Okay.
they divorced when I was 3.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So then they had my oldest sister, and then I have another sister in between that, and then me. And they divorced when I was 3. But my dad always was like very adamant about like the kids need to go to be baptized. So I was baptized as a baby, and then they have to go to CCD or catechism. So like every Tuesday growing up, like I did that, and then we went in and out of church. My grandma's really into the church, and we would go at times where I feel like we'd have moments where, we were really consistent about it. And then, moments where we weren't, particularly like the type of Catholics or Christians that go on the holidays, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the Christmas and
C&E
Easter.
members. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. What are they called?
C&E members.
What does that stand for?
Christmas and Easter.
Oh, Christmas
Yeah.
and Easter. Yeah. C&E members. So, but, I did my first communion and all that kind of stuff. And I think too, like Xander and I like maybe found out that I think we went to CCD together and we didn't
No
even
way.
realize until later.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
So Xander was raised Catholic too.
Xander, are you raised Catholic? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, a few words.
Yeah, man, a few words, he nodded.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I've always been really into like religion as a whole. Like I can remember the first time I went to what's the name of the church here? It's like one of those bigger like Christian churches.
Cedar Creek.
It wasn't Cedar Creek. There's one in Bedford that is similar. It's like just like Cedar
Cornerstone.
Creek. Cornerstone. Yeah, yeah. I remember going to that as a kid and with my cousin, and I was like, this is amazing. Like I loved it. And so I would go with friends and things like that. And I remember like begging my dad to take me to go to Cornerstone.
Wow.
And so, I kind of always like had that evolving, but I always felt really spiritual. Like, my grandma who goes to Catholic church, she's there all week volunteering. I mean, her husband died a few years ago, so she's just like, that's what she does. And she's there every Sunday. And she's also super spiritual. And like, I can remember at a young age, her like babysitting us and being like, oh, there's like spirits in your home. And like me feeling really tapped into that. I had an Ouija board. So like, I don't know. I always kind of had all these different, I think it was just something I was exposed to all the time. My mom's super spiritual and intuitive. And so, and I am too.
Mm.
And I would argue my like middle sister is as well. My oldest sister, maybe not so much, but so we, yeah, like my sister in high school, both actually my sisters, this is like a weird story. It's going to sound weird, but it wasn't.
Love it.
They both dated brothers, but at different time periods. They're like 4 years apart. And my oldest sister, the guy that they dated, their mom is a medium, a psychic medium. And so when I was in like fifth grade, she had come up to me my sister played volleyball, and she came up to me and we were just talking, and she's like, I want to talk to you. Like, I like something about you is super intuitive, and like I'll never forget that. And so I think I had gone with my sister to like, she had a little shop, and so I'd gone in there, and I think I was just like, that was it. Like, I don't really remember a whole lot of us like seeing each other a ton, but I remember she gave me these like, I guess like meditation tapes, and she had me do those, and so I did those like a couple times, and then I just like fell off, and was in middle school, and like wanted to just be cool and go to like,
So how old were you when she said, "I want to talk to you"?
I was in fifth grade,
Okay, so you were
and
young.
then in like sixth or seventh grade, I think I like went to her shop, and I remember I had a reading with her. She told me I would have like a long term high school boyfriend, and I did. And then yeah, she was like, like, I think you're a medium. Like, I remember her like specifically like pulling cards and telling me that. And as a young kid, I used to see this like, it's funny now because I recently heard like a couple years ago, there's like a joke online about like the Hat Man, who's like people say that when you like kids take Benadryl, they like, hallucinate and see like this guy,
Right.
the shadow figure. But I grew up seeing a shadow figure. My parents didn't like drug me or
Really?
anything like that, but I used to always see this like thing that would follow me all the time.
Really?
And the last time I saw him when I was in like a freshman or a sophomore in high school. And I later have discovered his name's Toby. He's my spirit guide. And he was a farmer that grew up in the field behind my house. And there are like, like stables and stuff. And I reminded him of his daughter, and like I guess his like spirit attached to me. So,
Toby's good then.
he's great. Yeah. He's like, it's an endearing, I guess, energy. And I've always like, I never felt like afraid or something. I always felt like really supported. So that was like, I can have memories of like feeling like this thing was sitting on my bed or like beside me all the time. And I guess that would be like an imaginary friend kids have. But for me, it like just felt normal. And then,
But
yeah,
you saw a physical shadow.
yeah, all the
Wow.
time. Yeah.
Wow.
So then, so I remember being like, I didn't even know like the word media. I was just like, I don't know what this is. And so again, like I was in middle school and high school and stuff. So I think I just kind of, I don't know. I just like didn't pay attention. I think I was like, that's cool. But like, I want to like, talk to boys and like be with my friends and like go to football games and,
Right, right. Go to
like,
Festorama.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I want to be cool and like just do cool things. But I always like, my mom had this astrology book called like, it's like a very popular, coffee table book called Birthday Stars and Numbers. And I read it so much. It was based on your day. So like I'm born November 9th. And so like, I remember I could literally just touch the book and open it and it'd flip right to my page because like I was obsessed with it. And I lived by like, I just loved it. I was like, this feels like me. And so I always joke, like I knew more at the age, I knew my zodiac sign at the age of 12 before I knew anything else. Like I just knew that. And I can remember like people always gifting me like little not human design, sorry, astrology books. And so that was like a big part of my life. And then I think I kind of put all that away. And then in college, I can remember like I went to Miami of Ohio and just like I specifically have a memory where there's this thing called Bagel and Deli that's really popular
Yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah.
And I remember like one night being out of there and just like telling people about their astrology charts. And I'm by no means an astrologer. I still don't identify as that. I know a lot to be dangerous, but like
Sure.
I haven't fully like in depth studied astrology, but I can remember like telling people about their charts and people like loving that. And I was just like standing there with these random people. I mean, drunk as hell, but like, so like I was doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And so that was like a big part of those things, but there's like a whole part of my story where like the kind of mediumship came back around later. But yeah, and like I guess going back to the faith thing, like I've always like felt really like strong to faith too. I think I think it's interesting like I'm on this podcast because I think a lot of people put those two things together like against each other,
Hmm.
and that's been my experience a lot. Like, you asked me about my family, like wondering what I was doing. Like I specifically remember my mom's best friend. She's like I support what you're doing, but I don't believe in what you're doing. But I was like, you don't really know it. Like, you don't even know anything about it.
Sure.
And so getting a lot of that kind of feedback, and I always like was super disheartened by it because I always felt like I'm not an atheist at all, I guess. And that was your question now that I'm like rambling forever.
No, it's perfect.
But yeah, I think that like, how could you be an atheist if you believe in these things? Like, I mean, they're like so something outside of ourselves. So like, I'm a big proponent of faith and whatever, you know, like whatever costume that wears for you.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Like I have a couple friends, one of my best friends is an atheist, and I like struggle with her hard because like I just like I'm like, you don't believe in anything, like, and I support her, but it's like I
Sure,
struggle
sure,
with the
sure.
fact that like I feel like she's super pessimistic and maybe sometimes a little negative, and I'm like, you don't have like you have to believe in something bigger,
Yeah.
whatever that is. I don't care what, but
Sure.
like you can't explain things. Like there's just certain things that it's like I couldn't even come.
Okay, so that's what like I not to answer the question for you, but why aren't you an atheist? Because you don't identify as a Catholic now, but you
Yeah.
still believe in a God, and we'll talk more
Yeah.
about that. But when you say that you're very spiritual and intuitive,
Uh-huh.
I'm guessing you've had, and I just started having these in the past like few months.
Okay.
I'm well, you tell me what like give me some stories where you're like, I know there's something out there.
Yeah. So I think we all like within us have like my personal belief when it comes to like God and things is like I think God is just like within us and everywhere, Like I think we all have that like divine connection to something.
Mm,
And I think that we can all tap into like we're the creator of our own life. Like the analogy really just applies to us. And so we can create like anything we want. So I'm a huge proponent of like manifestation, and I think really at the end of the day like manifestation and all the language that I use they're all like synonyms for things that like religion uses, right? Like prayer is manifestation, like that's something. Was that a question you had? I was
well,
thinking
no.
like cross. I was like, he's like cross that one off the list.
Yep.
No, but I think that like it's all the same thing. It's just different language to like what you call it. So if you call, God a God, or, Jesus universe, or creator, or spirit guide, or ancestor, like whatever you want to, say what that is. I think there's obviously like a level of belief to it, but I think we all have different language for the feeling inside that there's something bigger than us. And so I think at the end of the day, like none of us are denying that there's something out like above or bigger than who we are, and we just are all like trying to figure out what that is. And so we're all like putting containers around that and like connecting to it in different ways. And so for me, I think some stories of like intuition, God, I don't know, there's like so many things that I could say. I think one of the things like my life I feel like is filled with so much magic, as I would call it, like where things just happen and I'm like, how did like I can't even explain this. Um, I'm like, Xander, what are like some of the stories recently? I feel like I have the craziest stuff happen all the time.
Um, yeah, you do. Well, just when that guy was talking to you about like wanting to, I feel like you're really big into
Oh, yeah,
intuition.
yeah, that's a good one. This is actually a very recent one that just happened last week. So I just spent like I don't know, like the past year I've been saying I want to bring in like a co-founder for my business. And I was posting about it online, like, just wondering, putting that out there, and I was receiving feedback from people, and most of the feedback was like, don't do that. Like someone needs to be hired into that, like that already works for you, that has proven themselves. Don't just hire a co-founder, you'll get in trouble. And so I was like, okay. And I've been reading I'm a huge like fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he studies the subconscious mind, and he's amazing. If anyone wants to tap into his work, it's awesome. But meditation's a big piece of like his practice. But I was listening to his book, and he gives a story about his son who is like calling in this, new career. And so he said, well, why don't you, spend some time writing down like exactly what you want to do, like keep it open, but like, also get a little specific of like what this looks like. And he's like, and now this is where the fun happens. Like now you get to like visualize and think about it and like see what happens. And like, so I think in a religious sense, that would be like, a sense of prayer, like being like, this is what I like, I'm hoping, believing that, God or Jesus is going to orchestrate something for that to happen for you. So I spent some time, I sat and wrote down like okay, I want someone to come into my team. But for me, like my business is super new. Like I have a team of people, but like I don't make enough to like have full-time employees. So I'm like, I'm like calling in this support because I feel like I can't achieve this vision alone, but I need someone to like I want someone who like believes in my mission and believes in me that like would almost want to work for me for free because they believe in it because they know that it's going to like come around. So I teach human design. I certify readers and like I have a whole course and program. And one of my students is we got Mr. Guard Dog over
Gus
here.
wanted to chime in.
Yeah, Gus is like, hey. And so I wrote so one of my students, his name's John, and he like he like every student leaves feedback on the course and he left me like really great like feedback and ideas and stuff, and he sent me a note and was like, hey, I really want to like expand on my ideas with you. He's like, can I like meet with you? So we met literally a week ago today, and he what I thought was like a meeting of just like him telling me more great ideas he had for our program. He's like, I want to work for you. And I'm like, I would love that. You're amazing. You're an awesome student. I think you'd be great. But I'm like, I'm just not at a place right now. Like I can't bring any more support in. And he's like, no, like I want to volunteer and like I want to do this
That's awesome.
for free. And like I literally was on like in tears on the phone with him because I'm like, I manifested this. Like I literally wrote this down and like called this in. But that's like a really little story. I mean, there's crazy things that have happened. Like, I mean, I do I'm very connected to something bigger. Like I think dreams are a big thing for me. Like I dream about like past loved ones. I've dreamt about things that have like then ended up kind of happening before. One of my earliest memories of like kind of feeling intuitive. This is a really weird one. I was at my house and I had this sense that like my phone was gonna break, and like literally like an hour later my phone like it was like when you have a flip phone actually I saw, which is crazy by the way. I need to know more about that. It was like when you had a flip phone, the whole thing like bent over, and I'm like, and I like dropped it and that happened. So it wasn't like I obviously wasn't like manually going to break my phone. My parents, like at the time, that was a huge like ordeal for your family because you had to go to Verizon. But so like I remember that being a thing. Like I remember, I can think of when we moved to California, like really weird synchronicities were there. Like I tried to move to California for like long time before we did. I applied for 136 jobs, had two final round interviews, and
You were determined.
I was very determined right before I met Xander.
Whoa.
And they and none of them worked out. And then when I met him, I was like, I'm gonna just stay in Toledo. Like this is great. I was super happy, started to love my life again. And then he was like, hey, I want to go travel nurse. And I was like, have fun, like go do that. And he's like, no, but I want to go to California. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, he was like, I want you to come with me. So, and that all, like, it was just weird. We ended up living in Irvine, which is like where both of my final job interviews, like that I had, one was with PlayStation, one was with Taco Bell. That's where we were going to like, that they're headquartered like in Irvine. And that's where we ended up living, which was crazy. And so I was like, there's always like weird, like little moments like that in my life. I'm trying to think of some other, like, there's so many more that, like...
Well, and you're good at picking up on them. I feel like people are so distracted today that if they would stop and just have a little bit of silence, they would notice things. Like maybe someone that isn't as grateful as you would just see this as like, oh, like someone's going to come volunteer without really even acknowledging, like, how cool that is.
Yeah, one time I was... this was before all this even really got in depth. It was my senior photos I was having taken by a photographer, and she was pregnant, and we were walking, and I said to her, I love the name. One of my favorite names right now is Sailor, because I was like, do you have a name? She said, yeah, but we're keeping it to ourselves. I said, I love the name Sailor. And she literally looked at her husband and said, that is literally our baby girl's name, and we've told no one.
Wow.
And so like I have little things like that just come through to me. Like I've been before with, like recently we were with one of our friends, and I'm like, did your grandpa used to wear like a hat? Like, I don't know. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I could feel him right now. Like I can feel his presence like with you. So there's like weird things like that go on. Where I'll know things.
Cool.
Just randomly.
That's cool. That's cool.
So I don't know. As far as faith goes, I've actually been in this journey of trying to find a church to like, I just feel like I need to honor this relationship deeper,
Wow, that's
of like
beautiful.
this gift. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Well, that's what I was gonna say is not everyone is so like spirit filled that it tells me that you're favored by God, you know,
I guess I don't know. I
and that
think
He
we all
wants
are.
to, for sure. Well, for sure. I mean, He loves all of us, but I think it's a gift to be that in touch with the Spirit
Yeah,
that
totally,
Catholics we would call the Holy Spirit. Um,
totally. Yeah,
so do you pray? I know you talked about meditating, but do you ever pray to like a personal being?
yeah. And I do the sign of the cross.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I
Very cool.
do. I'm see, and
Bonus
this is what
points.
I'm trying to get better about because I feel like I always do it in times of need. Like one of the last times I feel like I really prayed back in January, our dog Rupert like got into
Mm,
something outside and was like unwell. And I've lost a dog, and so am very I get very anxious when my dogs get sick because I never want to go through that heartache again. But I like literally was like out loud like crying like please don't take him like make him okay,
hmm
and I think that was maybe a catalyst for even the journey I'm on now because I remember being like I can't just like beg for things like but I am very great, like I think gratitude's a big practice, and I think anyone who like talks about manifestation again, like it goes with the same with church,
For sure.
is like you have to be thankful and grateful for the the prayers that have already been answered.
Yep.
So I'm trying to be a little bit better about that because I used to do my gratitude journal every morning and I feel like I've just gotten off. But yeah, meditation. I also like want to deepen my meditation practice. I think right now I'm really busy and I think I've just let all these things go to the wayside, which always makes me feel disconnected.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, like you said earlier, I think a lot of the terms that are outside of religion, like manifestation, and that's the only one I can think of,
Yeah.
like scare people off. But it is like the same. Like, there's a way to pray called mental prayer, where I always thought you would just
Oh,
pray like talking to God, but mental prayer is more of like contemplative, and you're placing yourself within something that like Jesus's birth, or you're imagining something, and then
yeah.
that's how like God talks to you there. So like
Yeah.
imagining physical things and
Yeah.
listening instead of just talking.
Yeah. Those like tapes that I did with uh, my sister's, like their boyfriend's mom from high school, they, I remember specifically these tapes like led me to, I guess, like the gates of heaven. Like I walked up a staircase and it was all like white, and I remember you got to the gates and it was like you had to have a conversation, and
You were awake when what?
I mean, I was like, laying there. You're kind of like, I think at that point your brain waves go to like
Whoa. Yeah.
theta, so at that point you're like awake but consciously like in two different places, like
Sure. Yeah.
so. Then that, yeah, that's basically what I was kind of doing, but yeah,
Awesome. This is great, by the way. Um, okay. Let me just think for a second.
I'm really glad that you wanted to have me come on here. I was like, I don't know what to expect. I was like, am I gonna be like,
Why aren't you a Catholic? Yeah.
yeah, no, I appreciate the openness because I think that's like what I like get a little. I think that's what turns people off to religion, and I'm like, why can't we just all be
Oh
like
my gosh.
respectful? Like it's not that like,
I went to mass this morning, and this guy pulls me aside and he's like, "Hey, you don't know me, but I watched your podcast." And I'm like, "Awesome. Like, what'd you think?" And he goes, "You're a troubled man." I was like, "Good to meet you too, like
yeah, what does that mean?
yeah, I think there's a lot of what I would call like fake Catholics where they just ruin it for like the truth because I think we so easily want to put, like, for example, if I went around saying human design is based on your shoe size,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was like just saying a bunch of crazy things that weren't true, that wouldn't make human design wrong because I'm not a good representation of it
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what I'm talking about. So Catholics that just identify like it's a political party can really, I think, do some damage.
Yeah, I think that's hard. Is like there's almost, what's the word for it? Um, is it religious bypassing is like a piece of that, or like where people, I think will get, they almost get like a hierarchy, or like I'm better than you. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm more faithful, or I do something. I'm like more in touch.
I'd like to shift a little bit into talking just about Jesus
Okay.
because I believe Jesus is God, right? That's what the Catholic teaching is. And I think what inspired me to message you was seeing that post about how you were on a faith journey. And maybe that could be question one is tell me about the faith journey. What kind of churches have you been to and where you're at now?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I grew up going to a Catholic church. That was like my first exposure to church. And then, I've been to like those like kind of big mega Christian churches like a Cedar Creek or a Cornerstone. And excuse me. And then, I mean, that's really like the basis of my church experience. Now, I think that you can find spirituality in different containers. Like I know, like for me, I've been on like lots of women's retreats, and we do something called like circle. It's called council. It's like actually an ancient practice where back then women always felt really suppressed, and they would have this experience where they would do council together, and they'd sit and they'd go in circle and just talk about like hardship of motherhood and like things they were dealing with that they felt like they couldn't communicate. And so in council there's these like rules like listen intently, keep it to the point, get concise, listen with an open heart, and try not to think about what you're gonna say next, because you pass like a stick or just something around to like, can be anything until it gets to your turn, but you sit in circle and then just give support to it. And men can be a part of council too. So I actually started like a little business at one point called Soul Healing Circles, and I was doing women's circles, and then I had men come. Xander and like a couple of his friends came at a couple times, and it just ended up being something I did on the side. But so that I feel like is a big piece of like where I found lots of contentment, I would say, in like a spiritual container. And now with this journey I've been on, I am trying to find a church that I feel like speaks to me. And so the first church I went to was like a mega Christian church. I didn't realize that. I just was like, churches near me, Christian churches near me in Google. And this one came up, and I think I searched non-denominational,
Right.
went, and I just didn't like it.
Did you go alone?
Yeah, I went by
For you.
myself.
That
I
is
was
good
like,
for you.
yeah, and I sat like, I was like, I want to sit front and center.
Wow, good
And
for you.
I just was like, I just was super turned off. I mean, that was very markety, which I know that they're like that. And I get it. Like, you have to have
Right.
people pay you so you can continue to, grow this mission. But I get so turned off by it. And like, all I want to get to is the scripture. I'm like, I want to get to the Bible, and I want to hear like the lessons and the translation and
I'm the same way.
I'm like, let's just get to like, that's what I want. I want to feel like filled up and like inspired and like connected and like go home and
give you something that makes you think,
yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, I want to like think about this. So yeah, I mean, like, not that I didn't have that, but it just felt like it was like 10 minutes of that. Then it was obviously the songs and stuff, which are great, but I kind of hate that part of it too. I know people really like that, but I'm like, I just want to like get to them talking and like, I think a great priest or pastor can like hold a room, and I like even love just watching someone do their thing. I think that's cool. That was my first one. The second one I went to was a friend of mine. She goes to this really small church, and they don't even have like, they like borrow someone else's church and go there, and really small group. It was really heartwarming, like super authentic connection, Christian church. And I went to a really unique ceremony where they were like going up and giving their experiences of like, with Jesus. And I mean, I was in tears listening to some of these stories. They were really sweet. But it went over and it kept going, and I was like, okay, I gotta go at some point. My sister was there with her 7-month-old, so I was like, we gotta like, he needed
more than an hour, like
it was like almost 2 hours, but I was like, people just kept getting in line, but there was like no more than like 40, 50 people there. It was a very small group. So I was like, this is like such a beautiful, authentic group. My friend who took me there, she had a notebook and like literally like journaled throughout. They had little prompts. I'm like, this is really cool. I did like that, but I was like, I think that church is a little too small for me. Like, I didn't want something like that. I just kind of want something I just go and like sit in the back a little bit. But then I was like, I didn't like the mega church. So then this past week, I skipped a week, and then this past week was the second or the third time I've gone. I liked this one more. It was mega churchy vibes, but like not like a more authentic, smaller group. But it was like, I mean, I had to stand because it was so crowded.
wow.
And everyone there was really cool. Like, I was like, this is like a,
All good.
yeah, I was gonna say it's probably my mom. She's probably like, where the hell are you? So it was like a yeah, it was a similar thing. They did the music and stuff. Felt like it took forever to get to the scripture, but I liked the pastor more.
Right. Yeah, that's
But I won't go.
important.
I don't. I mean, I'd go back, but I don't think it's my church though either. I left, and it was weird. They did the body and the blood of Christ at this Christian church. It was like almost like a little
Small
like
one.
shot glass, so
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
creamer with like. And I was like, this is why are we doing this here? And they just kind of like told you just do it. But I'm so used to the ceremony of like, you get in line, you go up, you
Yes,
kneel,
yes,
like you do
yes.
the whole like thing.
Yep.
So I was like, what is this?
Hmm.
Interesting, but that's where I'm at in my journey. I think next for me, I'm going to go to another big church near us that's really popular. It's called Mariners, and it's like a really beautiful church. Everyone talks about it. I'm going to go there, but someone's like, I don't know that you're going to like it based on the other ones, but I just want to experience it.
Yeah. What did the middle group, the smaller group, what did they identify as? What was their?
Christian.
Okay, just
Yeah.
Christian. Beautiful.
All of them are Christian. I mean,
Right, but did they have a like a denomination or just Christian?
I guess I don't. I guess I think of Christian as a denomination, or like
Yeah, well, I would say there's denominations within Christianity like Lutheran, Methodist, or a non-denominational, I guess would be a denomination, like a more
yeah. I think they
like Catholicism is a sect of Christianity, so just more
okay.
specific.
Yeah. So non-denominational, I
Okay,
guess,
cool.
would be what they were.
Yeah,
At
I
least,
feel like a lot of people that have a real relationship with God are just Christian because they put that in front of the title they identify as, which I think is good. Like, that's what I
yeah,
try to do too.
yeah,
Sometimes I get too focused on Catholicism because I believe it's the truth.
yeah,
But I'd way rather preach like what it's surrounding, which is Jesus, than a
yeah.
specific religion. What do you think about people that say Jesus is the only way?
I struggle with that. I actually had a DM from a girl I went to like elementary school, high school, and stuff with send me like what I felt was like a pretty rude DM. Just being like, I pray that you like find Jesus in your heart. Like, this is the only way. He saved me. Da 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 da. And I was like, I replied and I said, I know that this came from like a good place, but it didn't sit well with me. And like, I just feel like there was like a level of judgment that came from this message. And I totally respect what you believe in. And I'm so glad that like you found this like savior and whatever thing you needed to be saved from. Like, I'm so glad that you found that and like you have this religion. And like, I think that's awesome. I was like, but I think you made a lot of assumptions about of who I am. And then she like, kind of went back and forth a little bit. It was fine. I just was like, I feel like, I don't know. I think that's what's been hard for me in this like journey of discovering churches. Cause like for me, I just think that language isn't fully like what resonates with me. And I think that's all about what it is for you. Like, I'm not going to say that that hasn't resonated with me or that it won't in the future. It just right now it's not. And so, and I know like, people will say, well, he just like has to find his way into your heart and you have to open up your heart. Like, I hear all the things and I'm like, and maybe he will, I don't know. But for me right now, like I'm not feeling connected to that. And so I'm exploring like, my mom thinks I'm a Buddhist, and so I've actually never really explored like a Buddhist church or what that is. My boss at my corporate job was Buddhist, and so I definitely know a lot from him. So I'm like totally gonna try to find a center to like explore what that looks like. I've never been a part of that. Another friend of mine told me I was Jewish. I was like, I don't know, but I was like, I'd be down to explore. Like, I'm totally open to just seeing like what resonates with me. And my grandma said something that she was on speaker. I was talking to my mom about it all. My grandma, who is the one that volunteers at the church, also super intuitive. She's like, I can tell you a million ways that I think like it'll resonate and connect with you, but like those are just me telling you things. Like, only you will know when you feel like in the moment at the right church or the right center that like you'll feel connected, and like that's going to be your own journey.
Right.
So I loved hearing that because I'm like, yeah, exactly. So I live in Orange County, so there's like an Orange County spiritual center near us that they've got a bunch of different services they do. So I might go to one of those. And then I might just tap back into like women's circles because like that's what really nourished me, had me contemplate. I don't know. That's that.
Okay.
How do you feel about that? Like, I wonder, like, are you like, oh, she just doesn't know?
No. I think you like the way that you think is a very loving, like it's very exclusive when you say Jesus is the only way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I totally understand that, like, that feeling and thinking.
Yeah.
I just would say lovingly that in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Mm-hmm.
No one comes to the Father except through me.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Gospel of Matthew, he says, if you are not with me, you are against me. And those who are not with me scatter. And there's another passage that I'm not going to get right, but
What do you think, like, by scatter? Like, what does that mean?
so this kind of ties into this verse I'm going to get incorrect, but it talks about how people who don't like the light and like goodness, they hide from the light.
Mm-hmm.
And you are not hiding from the light. Like you are open and looking for faith, like a
Mm-hmm.
where you feel at home.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why I would say it's important that we. And this is just the Catholic teaching. This is not like me so much saying this is just like the faith.
Yeah.
Is it's tough because God became man, right? Like your name's Leah, his name was Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And he was born by two poor parents in a manger. He was sentenced to death, ditched by his friends, whipped. They had a crown of thorns they shoved on his head.
Yeah.
He carried a cross so heavy that it went through the skin on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And
They nailed him to it.
yeah, and then the whole crucifixion, yeah, that's kind of a big deal too. So it's tough to like, I personally believe that like when my day comes, I'm going to have to look God in the eyes. And if we don't accept Jesus, we got to say, hey, like, yeah, what you did was good, but there's other ways. So I just think it's important, like, it's not so much me saying Jesus is the only way, it's Jesus saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. But that's your belief system.
Right. Well, that's the Christian belief system.
Yeah.
So, I guess what specific things, because I feel like your objections are, I probably share a few of them,
Mm-hmm.
like what would prevent, are you open to Catholicism?
Yeah. I like the rituals.
Mm.
I love ritualistic things. Like, I think that's what's cool about, like, we're getting married in August and, like, we're forming our ceremony. And Xander's like, we'll just do, like, a quick, like, but I'm like, no, like, it's a ceremony. Like, I love that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm totally open to it.
Yeah.
But I don't, when I go, I don't feel like, it doesn't, like, I don't feel, like, overwhelmingly, like I have these epiphanies or I feel, like, so connected. Like, I feel more connected when I meditate for 20 minutes by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That could just be the wrong place. I don't know. It might not be the right service. I can't say I've never not felt, like, good after, like, a Catholic ceremony. But I think that's just some of the pieces that I just don't feel like, just doesn't feel like it just doesn't resonate with me. And I think, like you said, like, I really appreciate what you said, by the way, like, connected to the light, because I think that is a big thing for me, is, like, I feel connected, but, like, do I have to have like, part of me wants to, like, deepen that relationship with something, but I'm like, do I have to have the container of a church? Or, like, because a lot of times, like, I've had this conversation too, where some people are like, your relationship's between you and God in your own way, like, by yourself.
Yeah.
And, like, some people they go to the church every Sunday and it's almost like to put on a show, and, like, to think that they're, like, that's the only way, but do they actually practice it after? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think too, I want to say, like, it would be crazy for me to say, hey, you have to go to a Catholic church to get to heaven, because that would rule out so many people that, like, a young girl in North Korea, like, she's got no chance, But that's how,
Yeah.
not how we're judged, I believe. It's like to whom much is given, much is expected. And so I feel like we won't all be judged the same, just like what's on our hearts, you know?
I think that's it too, right there is like, I believe in reincarnation. Number one, I do believe in past lives. Like, I believe in parallel universes. So those like things all go very, against a lot of like what is taught in the Bible. And so I I believe all of us return somewhere. And like, that's like just a strong belief system I hold. So that's it too. Like, there's some pieces where I'm like, there's not that I don't fully believe everything in the Bible. I think they're really beautiful stories. Like I remember learning about the Ten Commandments in CCD, and I remember like coming home and being like, no one's really living like with these. Like I remember like talking to my
Yeah.
parents about this, being like, I feel like I know a lot of people are doing things before marriage, or like, people of adultery. I'm like, and I remember like developing this like thought process at that age, being like, these are just guidelines to live a good life, right? Like, is that what that is? And I think that's kind of the belief I've held with it all, is like, these are guidelines to live a good life. But are they the guidelines? I don't know. I guess we'll find out when we die.
Hopefully that day's a long ways away.
I hope so too.
And to another point that I had written down that I just want to mention is that the Catholic Church claims to have the fullness of truth. And not that there's not truth in Islam or there's truth in human design, not that that's a religion.
Yeah.
And there's truth in Buddhism. So that's kind of an easier pill to swallow of like, yeah, because I think our mind goes to like these judgy Catholics that say, oh, like you look at a tarot card, you're going to hell. You know?
I know. I'm like, what? No, it's just God speaking to me through these.
And that stuff is interesting to me. Like, and I love this open conversation.
I love
I would
tarot.
just say this of just a thought is like, God speaks to you, right? Spirits speak to you. I would argue that there's good and bad spirits. And how would you differentiate the two, I guess?
Yeah, I can feel a bad spirit.
Can you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You can, like, I can tell when something isn't. I mean, I can walk into an environment. I'm like, bad juju, bad juju. For me, I feel like I have my own like spiritual rules. Actually, like I have a document I created I have a mediumship mentor, and we created like a literal like contract of like when spiritual experiences can happen and when they can't. So I can immediately tell when someone's open to
Boundaries.
something, because people will say to me like, read my palm, or like they'll say like funny little jokes to me, and it's cute and stuff. I know that they're like just trying to like be silly, but I'm like, it's nothing's even going to come through because you have to be open and willing. Like, I'm not going to have an experience
Yeah.
because like I have this, contract that I've created with God, if you will, like if you're not receptive to it, then I don't want to have a moment with you. But so, what was your question?
I don't even know. Talk to me about like a couple issues that you have, if you'd like to, like with the Catholic Church, because there's certainly things that are jarring. Like, do you have any that come to mind?
Yeah. I think
And just for the record, sorry, I'm not trying to
convert me.
change. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to change your mind. I mean, I'd love to get you on the team, obviously. And I'm certainly not qualified to like defend the faith fully. But I feel like the objections you're going to have, maybe I've also had, and just an open conversation, which is in 2025, I think rare thing. So this is
Yeah. Yeah. I just think that it's not the only way. Like that's like really all that like I believe. Like I just think that we all can connect to something in our own way. I think Catholicism, in a lot of ways, you know, I think it's really beautiful, and like, I see all your murals and stuff. I've met the Pope who just passed, I've met him. I was at the Vatican, and like I went to service with like around Thanksgiving in 2017, right there at his place, and it was, I mean, so we feel really connected. I'll tell you that. Like even I didn't even know what they were saying as they're speaking in,
Latin.
yeah, and I'm like, but I mean, I felt like I'm in a holy center,
Wow.
you know. But my objections are, it sometimes feels like you said exclusive. It can feel like not so human sometimes, and that might just be like the when the Bible was created, in the sense that I think it feels like you have to be perfect, and I feel like I look at Earth and like the human experience as like I look at this as like a playground. Like I think we all like I believe that we're all on like a spirit team. Like I believe, you know, Xander, my fiance, like we've been connected in many past lives, and my family too. Like I believe that we reincarnate and we develop new relationships with each other. Where like, you know, maybe I was my mom's mom in a past life, and my sister was my brother, or like my dad, or something. You know what I mean? Like I think that we like our souls morph, and we're here to learn lessons, and we continue to come back, and we until we like learn that lesson, then we come to a new life, and like we continue to evolve. And actually that book that I was mentioning earlier that I like totally had a brain fart on was like they kind of talk about that, how like it's called Many Lives, Many Masters, because there's like master souls that like, you know, come back and they're here to teach. And so one of the lessons is like teach people who are less than you. Maybe that's what I was trying to get to earlier, was like if, and Kabbalah talks about this too, which I'm a big proponent of, is like your people who need your help or are less than you, like you have to, or not less than, but like help people in the lessons that you've already learned. Like people are always trying to upgrade and be around like, oh, like these next level people, or trying to like, you know, be around people who have more than them. But actually it's like such a gift to go to people who have less than you and like help them through. And so I kind of believe in that. And I think sometimes the Bible can, I don't want to say it removes the humanness, because I think a lot of the lessons are about like what can happen and like the pressures and things we feel from humanness. But like I think it's weird that like a priest is like not supposed to like ever have sex. I think that's like
Yeah.
weird to me. I think that that's like just like not natural. I think that like the body and the blood of Christ, I think that's a really, like, as much as I love rituals, I think it's a weird ritual. Like it's kind of strange to me. I think that, yeah. I also think that the Catholic Church is really boring. Just to like, you know, say in general, like I feel like I go and I'm like, this was what my feedback last week when I went to that Christian church. I was like, they're saying things so complicated. Like, can we make this easier? Like, I remember one of the things, I actually took a picture of it. It was like, it was giving these principles, and it was talking about our marriage. It was talking about marriage, but it was talking about marriage to the church. And I really liked it. Like, this was one of the things that I was like, you know, I guess talking about like when you leave and feel like you're contemplating something. I was like, I actually really like what this is saying, but I'm also at the same time like, this is, why do they say it this way? Live as the beloved, like live with undivided loyalty. I mean, that one makes sense, but like it was, so it's marriage as a model of discipleship. And so for me, I'm like live in continual repentance. And like, so he went on to explain those, but I'm like, why didn't he just write them as the way he's explaining it? I'm like, this is so inaccessible. Like, this isn't changing people's lives because we have to sit here and decode this thing. And I'm like, so like live as the beloved. Okay, so like live as your, like, what would Jesus do? Like live as you want to be, like be divine, be holy, be of light. Like say things that make sense to people. Like I feel like sometimes you read these things and I'm just like, why it's so complex. Mind you, again, it was like written so many years ago, but I'm like, it's just like make it practical. Like this isn't landing with people. And I think that's my problem sometimes. I'm like, none of this lands. And so I like a different language for it.
Yeah. On the one note of being perfect, is earlier when I was saying, Jesus came to earth, suffered and died for us. It's not any, and kind of like along with that girl in North Korea, it's not that we can earn, this is the Catholic Church teaching here. It's not that we can earn our way to heaven. It's through what Jesus did. So, like, I'm a sinner. Like, that's what the Bible teaches. Like, I'm a sinner.
Yeah. That's
Guessing.
humanness.
Yeah,
You're human.
right. But I want to improve myself. And so, like, the sacrament of confession, like, your sins are absolved, where I think there's healing, and the Bible talks about confess your sins to one another. So, just like, I guess just to be clear, like the Catholic Church would say, none of us are perfect. Like saints are
Yeah.
just sinners that admit that they're sinners. Like
Yeah.
there are saints that had sex on altars, and there's saints that have killed people. Like they've done brutal things, but they accepted Jesus then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chill out.
Well, I'm running out of questions. Let me just think about a good way to.
Well, I want to know too, like, you said you've been experiencing the past few months, like, you've had these, like, you mentioned you're like, yeah, I've been feeling like kind of connected to something. And like, that's part of the reason you wanted to have a conversation. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
like, what are you connecting
Yeah.
to, or like what's showing up?
So the first time it happened, to you, I'm not going to sound crazy, which is great.
Yeah.
But to some people, I'm going to sound crazy, and that's okay.
Love it. That makes us human.
Yeah. A couple months ago, I had a good day. I was over at my friend Luke Vollmer's. Shout out to Luke. And, I'm in the middle of this Christian journey, and I went to confession, which felt great. I went and had dinner with my parents, which was great. And then I came home, and I'm sitting right where Xander is, and I was just playing this song, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. And it's just a gospel song sung by the BYU choir. And out of nowhere, again, I'm going to sound crazy, and that's okay. My legs, like, just, I've never done ecstasy. I don't think so. My legs just started, like, fluttering. Like, they weren't moving, but I was feeling like I was floating. My body, just everything, like, was tingling. I started crying, like, weeping, crying. Just like a total thing that I wouldn't be able to explain naturally. It's not like I drank a certain tea that, got me going. So that was the first time. I think I told my little sister Jacqueline, who's amazing, the next day, and she's like, Nick, you're crazy,
So, have you listened to that gospel before? Like, was that the first time you listened to it?
That's a good question. I'm on the spectrum in the sense of like where I find something I like, I just cannot get out of it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That song now I'd probably listen to 1,000 times within a week. I
Yeah.
think that might have been the first time. That's a great question.
I wonder because I'm certified in sound healing, and so just to give you like some science on like
Yeah.
what potentially could have happened too. I think it very much was a spiritual experience, but it could have also just been like a biological thing too. So in sound, there's different frequencies to, music and things. And so, I mean, sound's a really powerful tool, and it can actually have the ability to like change our brain waves. And you can like study this, and different tones and different
Yep.
frequencies put together can actually have like a really profound experience. I think that's like, there's a lot of science of like why churches are powerful because of the celebration. There's actually an energy that happens when people come together. Like there is a collective consciousness when we're all, praising towards the same thing. That's why people love concerts, right? That's why it feels so good to go to a concert. That's just like why church is great too. You feel that like I'm so connected because you're actually like, it's called, you're having heart resonance with all the people around you. Joe Dispenza studies that, Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so also like what can happen is like when you're listening to music though, like there's a vibration to it. When we're all at like, we're energy beings, like we all have energy. You can see that on, if I go like that, like you might start to feel like the wind from my hand,
Right.
like you're feeling the energy come that way. So like, I wondered if maybe like the frequency of that music was like matching, like harmonizing with like the frequency of something in your body. It can actually have a physical effect. Like it can heal people's like literally like disease and different
Mm,
things within people. Sound can, but
mm,
also it can like have make you have really profound
yeah.
experiences.
No, that, yeah. So, yes, I would say like the Catholic perspective of that is like the same thing where we would say that we were made to worship, and that's a worship song that I think is beautiful.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, that does something to you. It was
totally.
crazy. And then certain times like where no music was involved, where the first miracle I'd like witnessed with my own eyes.
Hmm.
This is gonna sound crazy. Is
No.
I was sitting on this couch. It was like 4 in the morning. I could not sleep, and I had just heard this person say, or I read somewhere that was like, when you can't sleep, instead of like getting mad, it's like God wants to talk to you.
Mm.
And so I came out here, very
I love
ritualistic.
that.
I lit a candle. I was praying the rosary maybe, or just praying, and a dog was like pawing at the door, and I go up and I'm like, oh, that's got to be Shaq, but it was Diesel.
Hmm.
And anyways, I love snuggling with these guys. I had them both on the couch, and Shaq normally goes here. Diesel likes to be on my chest. Shaq was on my chest. I'm sorry, Diesel was on flipped around.
Hmm.
And so I just lifted Diesel up. Again, this is gonna sound crazy, but this is why I'm doing this show. Like
I don't think this sounds crazy at all.
all of a sudden, I'm lifting up Diesel just so that Shaq can get up.
Hmm.
And then again, so then after like 30 seconds, I let Diesel down, and he's the most spastic, afraid of his own shadow, anxious dog I've ever been around. And once I let him down, I could tell he was kind of scared up there. And once I let him down, he just melted. Like, and
Hmm.
you've got dogs and people with babies, like, what your baby, like, not this is a literal baby, but
They are a little
like,
baby, but
yeah, exactly.
they are in my eyes. I am
Like
their biological mom.
the way that they, yeah, hopefully, yeah, you don't look like them, thankfully, but, um, like everything was different. He was breathing like way deeper. I was tapping his butt like normal, and he would normally twitch. He was just like, I'm like, oh, he's faking like he's asleep. And then out of nowhere, again, just like what the Catholic Church would say is like a true moment of contrition, I just started weeping and just like this, again, this like ecstasy like feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to be open here. I just like said over and over again, like, I'm so sorry. Because what hit me was like, I would say Diesel. So I believe like we're in the physical realm. I believe there's a spiritual realm.
Yeah.
And
True.
some people can like literally see into the spiritual realm.
Hmm.
And like Diesel would always just like start barking randomly, like looking at certain things. So long story short, I just feel like Diesel had been like afflicted his whole life. I'm in this like I just was feeling totally at peace. Like I held him up, not I wasn't doing any type of
Diesel's
like
the deaf one.
yes.
Yeah.
And then man, I told my family that, and they're like, "You're crazy." And then that next day, my mom and sister saw Shaq and Diesel playing with each other for the first time, and he just was
Wow.
walking like everything was different. So again, I can't explain like certain things like that are
Yeah. It's like, wait, that was what a weird like
yeah,
transition, like
yeah.
out of nowhere.
And then certain times where like the last thing I'll say is my Aunt Dorothy, who's pictured up there. I was just like deep in prayer, and I was thinking about her because she's like one of my favorite women of all time.
Hmm. And she's passed.
Yes, and she never had kids.
Hmm.
I think her dad was pretty hard on her,
Mm.
and she just loved me and my two sisters, and we'd come to visit my grandma. She'd pull up in her pickup, she'd have her camera out, she would always have musical instruments. Like she just was so loving. And I just was like trying that mental prayer where I'm just like, wow, Aunt Dorothy had to be so excited pulling into my grandma's like farm acre to park her truck. And then it again, that feeling just hit me of like just this total like ecstasy is the only way that I can describe it. Like
Yeah.
I'm weeping like a baby, but I'm like as happy as I've ever been. Like, and then I started laughing as hard as I've ever laughed. Again, if I sound crazy, good, but those are just like real intimate moments where Jesus also talks about like those who haven't been born again like won't see the kingdom of heaven. And I was raised, and I think like I was maybe a believer, like sure Jesus is cool. And then when I accepted it, that is where I feel like things changed because I think Xander will tell you I was not like this in college. He
Yeah.
saw me out at Brew U and Nino's. Um, and so like those are certain things that
But
like
why are you
attributed to
now? Like,
this.
what are you searching for? Like, do you like What's
Yeah.
what's the
So you're asking good questions. Wow. The roles are reversed here.
yeah, I'm
Um,
curious.
I would say my whole life I was chasing comfort and pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left my corporate job, like the year leading up to that, I had just like a YouTube fanatic, like researching theology, and not
Mm-hmm.
Catholicism was the last one I got to actually. Even though I was raised Catholic, I thought they were the fairest. I thought, the Bible says things like don't pray to dead people and certain things that kind of disprove the Catholic faith. And so I was kind of bouncing around, kind of like similar-ish to you, except on YouTube. I wasn't brave enough to go in person.
Yeah.
And one night when I was living in my parents' basement, it all just clicked. I was watching this Catholicism documentary by Bishop Barron, and I'm just like, whoa, like people died for this. And like something that I didn't study just like made sense to me and I understood it. And so now it's something like truly I would die for. Like if you put
Yeah.
out a gun and said, "Hey Nick, is like Jesus God?" Like I would say, yes, like
Yeah.
shoot me if you have to. Like that's how.
Wow.
And so like with that being said, I just feel like one, I want to be a loving person. Like that's what Jesus' most important commandment is, to love one another.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to, one part of the podcast is like help young men from making all the same mistakes I did. And two is to shine a light on the Catholic faith, because I think there's so many like, and there's so many misunderstandings and like I think misconceptions that I would say that the devil wants people thinking. But there's also things that like are just harsh truths that are kind of like hard to accept. So yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I think is so cool is like God showed me so much grace where I was raised in a great family. Like we went to church and I just, for my own reasons, like ran from it. I was an insecure little boy. And so even for someone like me who it was right in front of, like God had the patience to almost let me live this crazy life and like look
Mm-hmm.
into different religions to kind of, again, this is my belief, like come to the truth. And so I guess I want to try to share that peace with the world, And I'm
Yeah.
still on my journey. I'm not like
Yeah.
trying to
That's
say,
the best time to do a
yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
Like,
true. Like learn alongside. So,
yeah. No one
anyways,
wants
you're supposed
the
to be doing the talking here. No, yeah.
No, no. I mean, it's a dialogue, but so interesting.
Mm,
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, Leah, you're a beautiful soul. I appreciate you coming to have this good conversation.
Yeah, thank
Let
you.
me just see if we've got any last. What would you say to the kind of friend you had earlier that's like, there can't be a God? Like, life sucks, people are suffering. Like, I'm not even open to God.
Just wait.
Mm,
Yeah, like you're gonna go through an experience where like unfortunately like it usually takes some like death or something
mm,
or a miracle
yeah,
for you to like open your eyes to that. So
cool.
just wait.
Beautiful.
Like it'll happen.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any final words, any final thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you. I'm really glad that you brought me on. I feel like you're probably gonna have people who listen to this and they're gonna be like, "Who the heck is this girl?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they're gonna
for
hate
sure.
it. They're gonna leave a comment and being like, "She's a devil worshiper."
Hmm.
So to that, like, cool.
Yeah. And to those people, I would say you're closer to the Lord than they are.
Yeah, so that's always fun, but I'm used to that. And I'm just glad that yeah, like like I feel like you're really open and also really receptive, and I don't get that a lot. Like I feel like I get a lot of like judgment. So I really appreciate like your openness and like hearing my side of the story, because I think then like not only are people like not open to me, but like they also assume that I'm not open to like
Mm,
what they're moving through, and I always kind of just get bummed about that. So
yeah.
I think this is really cool.
Awesome. Cool.
Thank you.
Well, Leah McCloud, thank you. I'd love to pray before we leave, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear God, I just want to thank you truly for the beautiful soul of Leah McCloud and her fiance, Xander Tice. I smile every time I think of that guy. I ask that you draw nearer to her than ever before. I thank you for her openness and all the similarities that we share. We love you. Amen. You have anything you want to add?
No, I think that.
I'm trying to get better at praying on the spot. Okay. Amen. Leah McCloud,
you.
thank you.